News. This is breaking news.
We begin with breaking news tonight. Collective bargaining powers for teachers and other public workers in Wisconsin are restored.
A Dane County judge ruled in favor of the unions that filed a lawsuit last year.
The ruling ended a near total ban on collective bargaining since 2011, part of that law known as Act 10.
WMTV's Nicole Herzog joins us now. Nicole, this law has been the subject of a lot of debate across the state over the years, even sparking massive protests at the Capitol.
That's right. Passed by the Republican legislature, Act 10 has stood against many legal challenges over the years. It was considered Republican Governor Scott Walker's signature achievement. Here's some video of protests from February 2011. As you can see, tens of thousands of protesters made their voices heard around the Capitol Square. At the time, it was a national story. Act 10 allowed public unions to bargain solely over base wage increases, no greater than inflation. It also banned automatic renewal of union dues and forced public workers to pay more for health insurance and retirement benefits. In today's ruling, Judge Jacob Frost said the law's exemption for police, firefighters, and some other public safety workers violated the state constitution's equal protection guarantee. Now public employees will regain the bargaining power they had before Scott Walker became governor. We talked with a conservation warden today who is happy about the decision.
When Act 10 was implemented, I was a municipal firefighter, and I was able to have and keep collective bargaining rights at that time. And then when I changed careers and came over to work for the state of Wisconsin as a law enforcement officer for the DNR, I was no longer allowed to have collective bargaining rights. So I've seen both sides of that. And I think that makes it especially impactful for me to be able to have that perspective.
Top Republicans have already said they plan to appeal the decision immediately. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos released a statement saying in part, quote, "This lawsuit came more than a decade after Act 10 became law and after many courts rejected the same meritless legal challenges. Act 10 has saved Wisconsin taxpayers more than $16 billion, end quote." And Governor Scott Walker responded to the ruling on his X account, saying collective bargaining is not a right, and also saying this makes the April 2025 Supreme Court race that much more important, writing, quote, "We want a state where legislators and the governor make the laws, not the courts," end quote. And coming up tonight at 10, we will have more from one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. In the newsroom, Nicole Herzog, WMTV 15 News.